Hey guys, Creator Mom. Happy Monday. It's a beautiful day. So yesterday, Sunday, was Mother's Day and all that, and I had a great day. I felt blessed AF. I watched a few movies. Wait, was it a few? I can't remember now. I watched two movies, and I started watching a third, which I gotta finish watching. It's called Sharp Turn, the third movie. It was about this guy who bought this house was by this sharp corner. Anyways, I watched this movie called Nona's, which Vince Vaughn was in. Actually based off a true story, which was pretty neat. And takes place on Staten Island and in Manhattan. It was neat, got to see the skyline in the movie and Statue of Liberty and all that, and I had a lot of Italian verbiage in it and culture and stuff, which was cool because I grew up in New Jersey and I grew up around a lot of Italians. My landlords were Italian. Actually, both places that I lived, my landlords were Italian. Like Italian. Anyways, like make bread Italian, mangia, garden in the backyard, and all that stuff, tomatoes and all that, So anyways, yeah, it was a really heartwarming movie. Vince Vaughn did a great job. They're very inspirational. I highly recommend the movie. It's really nice. It's about Vince Vaughn plays this guy who grows up in this Italian family, loves his mom, has a good relation with his mom and his nonna, and they do a lot of Italian cooking. And anyways, the cooking was a big part for him, and for the family, just the cooking and having family gatherings and all that. So when his mom passed away, he got money, excuse me, and his friends were like, I guess it had been a while, and his friends were like, get some new furniture, find a girlfriend, use your mom's money for something that's gonna make you happy, Well, anyways, he's walking around in Staten Island one day and he comes across this restaurant that's for sale. And long story short, he buys it, and he suddenly has this vision that he wants to open a restaurant that feels like family, and he wants nonas to cook the food. And it's really neat. Of course, a movie doesn't come without its own trials and tribulations. It seems like it's not going to work out, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, and then it does work out in the end. So those movies are always very wonderful. You know what I mean? The ones that kind of, they start nice, and there's a little bit of a problem, a conflict. Then, there's an idea, and then there's which is exciting, and there's more conflict or challenges getting to the fulfillment of this idea, and then suddenly, everything works out in the end, and it's all beautiful and lovely. So it's a beautiful movie. And then I watched a movie called The Ugly Stepsister, and this is I think it's not produced by Shudder Films. I think the guy's name is Emil. I was just asking ChatGPT, and this was a good movie. I really freaking enjoyed this movie. Shudder Films was involved. I like a lot of Shudder's stuff, but I definitely have watched a movie that I didn't like, that had Shudder's involvement. Shudder, that's SHUDDER. They do some horror films and things like that. But it's not always super grotesque horror films either. It could be very dark, mysterious, or whatever. I was gonna say almost like this one guy, but I forgot his name. Anyways, so yeah, The Ugly Stepsister was fab. It was a horror movie, a Cinderella horror movie, which I really loved because Cinderella and a lot of these fairy tales, and I'm a big fan of Brothers Grimm as well, just the dark fairy tales. I love that shit. because I think they're all meant to be dark. You know, they're all dark. And anyways, you know, we grew up watching Cinderella. Like, how many of us had Cinderella, Snow White, Little Mermaid on VHS? I had them on VHS. And I loved Cinderella. Cinderella, Cinderella. And these, you know, kids movies, they take these dark fairy tales and they make them kid-like and nice. You know, they don't get very grotesque in these fairy tales for kids. So anyways, it's nice to see. And there have been some adult versions or whatever, like non-cartoon versions of Cinderella. But they have still been very light and inspirational and nice. This was a horror, like dark. And at first I was like, well, this doesn't seem very horror-ish, you know what I mean? But it does, it gets grotesque. Because what it does is it takes the stepsister's obsession with the prince and becoming beautiful to its edge, you know? Like to its delusional, crazy-ass edge. So, and the stepmother, you know what I mean? They're both crazy. The stepmother has, you know, used that girl's lack of confidence and feeling ugly. And she probably, I mean, she obviously initially made her feel ugly, and then she believes she's ugly. And then so the mother plays off that, and they do some crazy ass shit to try to make her beautiful for the prince. Like, they do these harsh surgeries, like give her lashes. I mean, and this takes place like back in time, so it wasn't like it's not like the surgeries were real. Like, they were very grotesque and harsh, you know. They fixed her nose. I don't even think she was under pain meds or anything like that. Took her braces out. This sounds non-grotesque, but in the movie it is, because the way they do it is very, like, what's the word? It's there's not like painkillers involved and shit like that. It's very harsh. The girl even goes as far as to, and then the girl starts thinking she's fat, which she's not, obviously. She takes a parasite of a tapeworm egg. I wonder if this was common practice back in those days. But yeah, this takes place back in those days, like, you know, in the Cinderella days, when the ladies wore the big ass dresses and rode horses. And so yeah, she takes this tapeworm egg, and then so that she can eat as much as she wants and not gain weight. And so she just puts herself through all this torture to try to become beautiful. And it's really demented. That's what's good about this horror movie. It's like really demented, which it is. See, they can't take it that far, the dementedness of it all in the fairy tale little kid VHS movies, you know. But in the adult movies, you really get to see like how grotesque and demented it really is. People actually are like this though. You know, in real life. But these days it's not as grotesque or demented looking, because we have beautiful, like, healthcare offices, and, you know, we have shit that just makes it look pretty. But back in those days they didn't have all that. So at any rate, so then the stepsister, right? There's two stepsisters in the Cinderella movie. The one is, I think she's too young to be with the prince, because the mother says in the movie she hasn't even got her period, basically. So she's not really involved in all this, but she sees her sister going mad, and she sees how her mother is too. And she even told her sister, she's like, you listen to everything she says, you know. The sister is trying to help her, but she's too wrapped up in this. And then you have Cinderella, you know, also the girl who plays Cinderella, and of course she ends up getting the prince and everything like that. But I like the relationship between the ugly stepsister and her real sister, because her real sister keeps trying to, like, help her. And so finally, when the prince picked Cinderella, obviously, Oh, before this, though, you know, when Cinderella was running away because her chariot was going to turn into a pumpkin, etc. She lost her shoe. So on the part where, you know, the stepsister tries to fit into the shoe, you know, in the kids movie, you know, you know how her feet got all curled up and she tried to stuff her foot in the shoe and it was funny and it bing and it flung right off, you know. Well, in this movie, it didn't fit, and what she decided to do was chop her toes off. She chopped her toes off. It was really disgusting part of the movie. I was like, oh, some parts I think I did have to fast forward through a little bit because I was like, oh, you know. But yeah, she chopped her toe off, and then her sister's like, oh my God. And then the mother comes in the room and she's like, oh, she's like, you chopped off the wrong foot. That's all the mother cared about. So the mother gave her some elixir of some sorts, kind of knocked her out. And she chops the toes off her other foot, the correct foot. And so that was really crazy. Poor girl. Anyways, and then, you know, the prince still chose Cinderella, so they show her, the stepsister, trying to go down the steps, like, on her belly and shit, and her real sister's just like, we're getting out of here. We're getting the fuck out of here. We're getting away from this crazy bitch, mother, and we are getting the hell out of here. You know, Cinderella went off with the prince, and the two stepsisters rode away on a horse, left the mom in the castle with this guy she was screwing. Yeah, it plays out the same way in the beginning, you know, like the stepmom marries Cinderella's dad, and Cinderella's dad dies, and with the way he dies, though, you would think that he got poisoned or something. I was wondering if she poisoned him, but I don't think she did, because she was upset that he died, like, damn it. But yeah, he died very, very quite suddenly. The mom didn't even bury his body. She left it in this room to rot. It was pretty gross. That was another grotesque scene. They had a lot of touches that made it horror film-ish. So, I love it. Dark fairy tales. What else? Yeah, it was, oh, another thing is it's Norwegian. So, and I've noticed something interesting about myself. So far, I will only watch movies with subtitles in Norwegian language and Portuguese. For some reason, I don't know, in other languages, I can't. I just like, oh, I hate that. I'm not going to watch subtitles. Like Spanish speaking films or Italian, or I'm like, no. But for Norwegian films, I can watch it with them speaking their language and read the subtitles, no problem. And I watched this whole show in Portuguese and watched the subtitles because I loved it. And I love the language. And I love the Norwegian language, so I don't know, for some reason it just feels okay with me. Because I watched Thor, this one Thor show, Ragnarok, and it took place in Norway. So I just love I love Norway, the way it looks, and I love Norwegian language. So that was fine for me. It was great. I loved it. And the music in the movie was amazing too. The sounds were great. So I definitely recommend it. Oh, so at the end, when one of the stepsisters tells the deranged stepsister, like, that's it, we're done with this, like, Cinderella went off with the prince, like, all this is over, like, we're done with this madness. She goes, because when she got the egg for the parasite, for the tapeworm, the lady who gave that to her also gave her the remedy. So she goes, where's the remedy? So she takes the elixir for the remedy to this tapeworm, which I guess when you take it, it makes the tapeworm come out, but it comes out your mouth, which is really gross. Instead of coming out your ass, it just comes out your mouth. So she starts vomiting, and then it starts coming out, and the sister's pulling it out her mouth, pulling it, and then all of a sudden it gets like stuck, and it's not coming out, and then she kind of yanks it more, and then this other tapeworm, gunky gunk worms come out. It was disgusting, bro. Whoa, it's such a disgusting scene. I was like, yeah, that's dark shit. So it all comes out, you know, thank God. It was gross though, and that was tough. Yeah, and then they just, you know, they take off on the horse. God knows where they're going, but it was a great ending. I liked it. I mean, the Cinderella went off with the prince. She didn't really love him, but she knew she needed to marry off into wealth, you know. She couldn't stay where she was. I feel like they didn't treat her as harshly as they did in the Cinderella movie, the kids, you know, the VHS Cinderella movie. but she was treated as a servant, but it wasn't super duper harsh. Or they didn't really highlight a lot of that in the movie. In this movie, they more so highlighted the derangedness of the one stepsister to try to get beautiful and all the measures she went through and wasn't successful. So yeah, chopping off her toes, getting, you know, eyelashes put on, but it wasn't like the ones you just stick on. It was like a nasty surgery. It was like gross. Getting her nose fixed. It was crazy because at the end of the movie, you know, after she's getting off the bed, she wakes up from that elixir after her mom chopped off the toes on her other feet. She wakes up and she's like, oh. And then she gets off the bed, but she falls literally onto her face and busts her tooth. And then, her hair starts to fall out in the movie as well, probably because of the tapeworm. And then so she goes down the stairs, like I said, and starts sliding down on her belly. And then by doing all that, she hit her nose. So she had a little lump initially in her nose, and they fixed that. But then at the end of the movie, when she's going down these steps, she broke her nose again, and it was even worse than the first time. It was bad. So she looked even more horrid. She looked like a whore at the end. And I think that's what, like, you know, vanity or trying to never feeling beautiful enough does to people. It's interesting though, because like when you see people that like, you're like, damn, they just did too much plastic surgery, like now it's just too much. I think it's kind of like an addiction or something. Like, it's sad because they never feel beautiful enough. Their face never looks perfect enough, you know. And then it ends up looking like a clownish at the end of the day, and you're like, damn, you looked way better initially, you know, you were fine. Like, you know, Cardi B, oh man, I'm not saying she looks like a clown, but God, she was so beautiful. Like, just the way she was. And she done fucking changed her whole goddamn face. And I'm just like, I remember seeing her. I'm like, that's Cardi B? I'm like, what the hell happened to her? What the hell? And what the helly? What the helliante? Yeah, for me, she's one of those, in my opinion, where it's just like, damn, I wish you would have just kept your original face, because now you don't even look like yourself anymore, you know? But anyways, not my monkey, not my circus. But yeah, definitely recommend this horror movie. It was good. The Ugly Stepsister, 2025. All right, guys, peace.